An inbreeding increase above 1% increases the chance that the population will not survive in the long term. In 2000, the Friesian breed was at 2%. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Friesian. As you can see, I'm here by myself this week. Erin's absent, but she'll be back. Don't worry about that. And getting right into things, the fawn occurrings are wrapping up. Circuit 1 is all done and finished, and you have until September 10th to sign up for circuits 2 and 3 without paying the late fees. So if you're still thinking about it, you got 5 days left of this taping. Moving on, I spoke a lot with the Fenway Foundation this week, and so this episode is going to be pretty much based on the health of the Friesian horse, which is a current topic going on in the Friesian breed right now. As we all know, the KFPS has made it a priority to talk about the health of the Friesian horse, to make that a priority. And okay, so the Fenway Foundation for Friesian Horses. It's my understanding they have 3 research programs going on right now: megaesophagus, gastroparesis, and aortic rupture. And I have a statement on the megaesophagus. This is the one that they're most close to a breakthrough, if you would. So let me read that statement, and then we'll move on to the other 2. So the statement from Angie DePunt with the Fenway Foundation goes as: after nearly 2 years, our research into the genetic inheritance of Friesian horses is at a very interesting place. We have recently identified some very promising candidate genes, and we're conducting further analysis to determine what type of mutations may be involved. The research has proved to be challenging and complicated, but we have the best equine geneticists in the world working on this issue. When we remain confident that we will have answers soon that we can share with the FPS. Our ultimate goal with this project continues to be the development of a genetic test that will enable Friesian owners to make intelligent breeding decisions. That was a mouthful, at least for me. I'm sure it's not for them, and it probably makes sense to a lot of you out there. But for my little simple mind, what I gathered from this and what I gathered from talking to, they're very close to finding the gene that's responsible, and probably and more likely multiple genes that are responsible for megaesophagus. And when they do get that point, then they'll be able to develop, hopefully develop a test that can figure out who's the carrier of the megaesophagus problem, in my simple terms. Moving on to aortic rupture, which is one that I actually found interesting. They're working on this in their research. They're at the let's gather some samples stage of the research, and I find it interesting because it's difficult to get aortic rupture samples in the Friesian horse, and there's a few reasons for that in talking with them. One is that the first and most obvious reason is that it's a tragic, traumatic event usually for the owners. It's something that happens sudden, and everybody's devastated, as we all would be. And then, so that's one of the reasons that they're not able to get samples easily. Another reason, and the one that I find most interesting, is apparently when the vet does a necropsy, the way that most vets do a necropsy, it takes them on a path that leads them to, and I hope I'm getting this right, it leads them to a path that gets them to cut through where the aortic rupture on Friesian horses happens. It's very specific on Friesian horses, the area that ruptures, and apparently when they're doing the necropsy, that's an area that the vets seem to be taught to cut into for a normal necropsy. So the moral of that story is if for some reason you have a vet and you're doing a necropsy, this is something that the vet needs to be aware of. And some might be, and we might want to make mention of it and see if they are aware of that issue. So I kind of find that interesting. So if they're not, they'll cut into it and destroy that sample. We're moving on to gastroparesis, or stomach paralysis, as I have since learned. So this is a problem that in the long run, in the worst case scenario, can cause stomach rupture. And we all know that Friesians have had this problem. We've heard about it before, or a lot of us have. And so they're starting to look into this issue. And what they have found is that the gastroparesis has a lot of the same symptoms as stomach ulcers. And so they're recommending that if you have a horse that maybe you suspect has gastric ulcers, you probably should get them to do an endoscopy. Aaron's been correcting me on that spelling or pronunciation all week, so I hope I got it right. Anyways, they suggest getting that endoscopy done so you can tell if it's, are we truly dealing with the gastric ulcers, or is it more something more serious as gastroparesis? And they do recommend that being done as a fasting endoscopy so that you can see if the stomach is moving the foods out of there. Looking on the floor here, I might be joined by my co-host Whitney any second, so we'll see if she has anything to add to the conversation. Whitney is, of course, our cat, and I'm not sure if she's in film yet, but there she is, all in her glory. So moving on, that's pretty much what the update is for the Fenway Foundation, and I hope to have Angie DePunt on the show with me here and in the near future. I just got to figure that out. Somebody decides she wants to play behind me. So moving on to I can't see what she's doing behind me, so we're just gonna have to roll with it. Moving on to my next topic. Okay, I apologize for that. I had to take a moment and get my co-host under control and get back, because this is a serious subject that we're trying to talk about here. So in talking with the Fenway Foundation, that led me to an article on horses.nl by Maren Holmes called "The Tipping Point for the Friesian Horse." Y'all might have read this. It's been floating around on Facebook. If you haven't read it, I would highly suggest that you read it. It is an extremely interesting read. It did take me some time to get through it. Again, my simple mind has a hard time processing all that deep information. But there's a lot of things that stood out that I thought I'd mention here. And, as we all know, the Friesian breed has had, at least since we've been in the breed, has had health issues. And everybody always talked about how it's because of the inbreeding of the Friesian. Well, this article seems to confirm that, and as we've heard in the past by other geneticists that have spoken at different fauna meetings and AGMs and the like. So back when Aaron and I got into the Friesian horse in around the year 2000, the big health issues back then was hydrocephalus and dwarfism, and it was an issue. The KFPS had researching, there was researching being done on it at the time, and they finally developed a test. So now that we can test our horses and know, avoid those pairings between the stallion and the mare, we've, you know, as we all know, and if you don't, it takes, for those two things, it takes both parents with the same genes or something like that. But it takes two to make the abnormality. So if you have a mare that has the genes and you breed to a stallion that does not, you'll be fine, and vice versa. If there's a stallion that has the genes and your mare does not, you're fine, and you're probably going to come out with a decent foal. So they've developed a test for that, and that's why we're trying to develop tests for all these other things. So getting back to the article, those two things, because of those tests, hydrocephalus and dwarfism, because of the testing, has pretty much vanished from, like, you very rarely hear about those two abnormalities anymore, and they are rare to happen now. But we want to move forward, and we'd like to take all the other health issues that the Friesian breed's having, like the three we've already spoke about that the Fenway's currently researching, and develop tests that we can do the same thing. Okay, getting back to the article. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization recommends that the inbreeding per generation growth rate be at 1% or less. That's what they recommend. And the organization finds a temporary increase of 0.5% acceptable, and they'd like to see that at 0.25% per year per generation. As I said, they recommended to the stud book that we keep the inbreeding below 1%. And in 2000, when Aaron and I got into the Friesian horses, I was astounded to find out that the inbreeding percentage per generation was at 2%. That's well over what the recommendation was for the stud book, let alone what is found acceptable. The thing about that is with that 1%, I'm going to read the full quote here. It says, an inbreeding increase above 1% increases the chance that the population will not survive in the long term. That just blows my mind. And we were at 2% in 2000. However, reading further into the article, in 2012, that number had dropped below the recommended 1%. So the FPS did a great job in getting that number down. And I can't help but think, is that because they initiated the kinship program? I'm not sure what year they initiated that program, but I'd be curious to know if that has something to do with the number dropping from 2000 to 2012 down below the critical 1%. And even better news, in the last several years, we've been below the acceptable rate of 0.5%. The article goes a lot more in depth with a lot of subjects, and they talk about connective tissue problems, megaesophagus, tail and mane eczema, fertility problems and sperm quality, and immunity system, and the immune system and durability of the Friesian horse. All of which we have pretty much all heard throughout our years with the Friesian breed. So it's nice to see that this stuff is actually being talked about and researched. And in the article, they talk about the Fenway Foundation, and we can't thank the Fenway Foundation enough for all that they do for the Friesian breed, because truly they are the leaders in genetic research for the Friesian horse. So bravo to you guys. So some of the things they talk about, some in the article, they talk about some ways that we can curb this inbreeding growth rate. And really, if I'm remembering right, the article, these items are more suggestions by members. Some, like this one here, breed a lot. They think we should breed a lot of mares, and not only breed a lot of mares, but different mares. So if you have a mare, they're not saying breed her as much as you possibly can. What they're saying is, diversify throughout the entire breed. And it's interesting to note that every year about 1,800 Friesian mares are born. Out of those 1,800 mares, 400 make star or better. And breeding exclusively with star mares and crown mares and model mares means that the population will continue to decline. And if you think about that, if we're trying to diversify, and now we're only, and they want us to breed all 1,800 mares, or at least the ones that we can, if we narrow that even further just to star mares, that definitely, you could see where that'll be problematic. I always, when I read this part of the article, I go back to my good friend Jan Ingelsma, who stated to us a long time ago that the studbook mare is the backbone of the breed, and that certainly rings true today. I'm not discounting star mares, crown mares, or model mares. I love them just as much as you guys do, but we shouldn't count out the studbook mares either. They have a critical role to play in saving the breed. And talking about stallions, it's interesting to note that there's 80 active stallions worldwide, and out of those 80, half of the foals born come from 23. So we're not utilizing the stallion population like we should be either to widen the diversity of the whole entire Friesian breed. So something to think about. There's always something to say for that interesting breeding of, maybe this stallion will complement your mare, but just because he wasn't the champion at the stallion show doesn't mean that he won't produce a really good quality Friesian. So just something to think about. So what can the KFPS do? In the article, some of the suggestions were offer breeding advice on pairings, and I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, who better to crunch the numbers than the FPS themselves and say this mare we think would match perfectly with this stallion. And I'm sure there's plenty of politics to play into that, but I do believe that that's something that could help. The FPS put out a survey on low kinship mares and encouraging mare owners with low kinship mares to breed them. And how nice would it be if we could go into the FPS website, type in our Friesian mare with the low kinship, and have them come up with, we think for the low kinship, these stallions would make a good pairing. There might be something similar to that on the FPS site now. I'm not fully aware because we've been out of breeding for several years, but it'd be interesting to know. If you know, let me know down in the comments, and I'll probably go research it. Another thing is there's the preferent title. Any mares that has 3-star mares or better, or offspring, they will award the preferent title to that mare for producing quality offspring. If to encourage low kinship mares, why don't we make that a preferent situation where that mare can get the preferent title, and that's another way to get people to breed their low kinship mares that might not be a star mare. If they're low kinship and they're going to make a positive impact on the breed, I would say that'd be a mare we prefer to breed to. Just a thought. And then there's a geneticist that I'd like to quote in the article, Rita Hovig, and she states that you have to ensure that the increase in inbreeding remains manageable. At some point, when you have too few animals or when fertility becomes problematic or you develop abnormalities, you should choose whether to bring in animals from the outside. Hot topic there, but as she states, when you have too few animals, when you have fertility becomes a problem, we know that can be a problem already, and when you develop abnormalities, and that's what's going on. So maybe bringing some blood from the outside into the Friesian breed could help, in my opinion, if that was to be done. And I'm not advocating it. It's just something that I read in the article and find interesting. But in my opinion, if that was to be done, there are so many things that would have to go into it. It would have to be a very controlled thing for me to buy into that. But it is an option and could help. So what do you think? Do you think outsourcing should be done? Do you think that we should be Do you think we should be bringing blood in from the outside? Let me know down in the comments. Let's get that conversation going in the comments. And let's talk about it. Introducing other blood could be a part of the solution, but I don't think it'd be the whole solution, and that's another statement from the article that I happen to agree with. The nice thing to know is that the KFPS is seriously looking into all of this stuff now. They've made the health of the Friesian breed their priority, and the breeding committee is looking into all this stuff and working on it, and that's really nice to know. Again, if you'd like to read this article, look for the link down in the description below, as well as a link to the Fenway Foundation and their information. And I'll wrap this up with, what are your thoughts? Leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear it, and Aaron would too. And hopefully we'll have Aaron back next week. Actually, next week we might be off. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to record something. We got a horse show coming up this week. We're taking the wee little ones, the minis, to a horse show, and this weekend and down in Los Angeles, and we're looking forward to that. But it does make quite the busy week. So we might be a week off for the next issue, but hopefully Aaron will be back with us by then. I won't have the crazy co-host that I've had this week. And I'll leave you with this. If you have a registry, an organization, or a club discipline that you'd like to talk about, leave me a comment below, and I'd be more than happy to get with you and find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. If you have a horse or an accomplishment that you'd like to talk about, or you know of a horse that I should be talking about, let me know in the comments. Get a hold of me at talkingfriesian@gmail.com, and I'd love to talk with you. And last thing, remember, no matter what the registry, organization, or club you belong to, it's all about the horse. As long as you're enjoying your horse, that's all that really matters. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you next time.